of the County Commissioners to meeting to order. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could just remain standing for a moment of silence. Thankfully, we're not aware of anything locally, but just keep everybody that's involved in all these wars across the world, keep these poor souls in our prayers.
Mr. President,
Yes.
the astronauts are on their way back, if they're not back already. We ought to keep them in our prayers as well.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. First, we have a public announcement. Code of Home Rule Bill number 1-2025 entitled Assisted Living Facilities in the Critical Area of Residential and Community Residential is scheduled to have a public hearing on April the 1st, 2025 at 6 o'clock p.m. Then I have a list of consent items. And for those, you might ask what that is. These are items that we have already talked about and approved. We just got to make a motion to cover them all. Regular session minutes dated March the 11th, 2025. Liquor minutes dated March the 11th, 2025. We have our closed session minutes dated March 11th, 2025. Commission on Aging, we appointed a member there. Number 5 is a cooperative agreement with Maryland Department of Agriculture for noxious weeds. Program open space funded upgrades to Wharton basketball courts, paving and surface coating contract. State's Attorney's Office grant award acceptance, and we're releasing 2 letters of credit plus Civic Plus quote Q9565-1. Any questions, gentlemen? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve all 9 of the consent items as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Then we have 2 special Class C license applications. The first one is a request has been made for the approval of a special Class C per diem liquor license application for Washington College to be held on this would take place on April the 6th, 2025. Yeah, the Washington College Ducks Unlimited have submitted a special Class C liquor license application for approval. They're requesting approval to sell beer only during a trap and skeet shoot held from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Hopkins Game Farm, Kennedyville on April the 6th, 2025. Due to the fact that this is a liquor license application, it's in need of a public hearing, and we will allow tonight to be that public hearing. So if anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this application, feel free to do so at this time. There being none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the special Class C per diem liquor license application for the Washington College Ducks Unlimited.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The next one is the Kent Soil and Water Conservation District has submitted a special Class C per diem liquor license application to sell beer, wine, and liquor during a dinner event being held at Red Acres Farm, 25367 Lambs Meadow Road, Wharton, from 5 o'clock p.m. until 9 o'clock p.m. This as well, due to the fact that this is an application for a liquor license, it's in need of a public hearing, and we will allow tonight to be that public hearing. Anyone that has an issue with this, would like to speak for or against this application, feel free to do so at this time. There being none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special Class C per diem liquor license application for the Camp Soil and Water Conservation District.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Ms. Jill Coleman, our Parks and Recreation Director. We have some special guests with us today, and I think Jill will give us a little, introduce some of them, or give us an introduction.
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good
Yes, this is my favorite time of year. It's always great to be here in March and recognize our junior wrestling program. As you can see, they're a little thin tonight, and I have to say that's only because they're dedicated wrestlers and they are at practice. So I'm truly honored to be here once again, yet another year of successful season for the Kent Junior Wrestlers. Each year, these athletes and coaches continue to inspire me with their remarkable achievements and growth. Every athlete has demonstrated incredible progress, pushed their boundaries, and strived for excellence. Their accomplishments reflect their deep passion for the sport, along with their unwavering support from their coaches, families, and community. Kent Junior Wrestling is dedicated to cultivating champions with determination and heart. This season, we had a record 35 wrestlers who placed in the top 5 at the Maryland State Wrestling Association tournament. And we are proud to have 3 Maryland State champions, Kinsley Kerwin, Colton Kerwin, and Carson Connor, whose photos are proudly displayed on our wall of fame at the community center. At this time, I would like to show a quick video honoring all of these wrestlers. Now we'll hand it over to the County Commissioners of Kent County for the presentation of the certificates of achievement.
And we have, the county, we have prepared certificates of appreciation for each one of those that you just mentioned. I just want to say, though, special thanks to the coaches
Absolutely.
that this group of children have, because they put everything into it. Where are those?
You should have a list. Do you not have a list?
Huh? We signed them.
Yes, list. Yes.
That's your list.
Oh, but who's got the
I
certificates?
do. They're right here.
Well, you want to Why don't you go out front and hand them the certificates, as I call the names, maybe? Or Jill, you do it because it'd be easier, you read them as they come to you, honey. And then we'll try to get a, well,
Would it be easy? So we've got, most of them are not here, so we are actually training for MAWA, which is the next big tournament after states. So we had 3 of them qualify, right, for being one of them this weekend, last weekend. She did amazing. So with MAWA, we will actually, they have the next few qualifiers. So we have a qualifier this weekend and a qualifier next weekend. And then, so with MAWA, what happens is on April 12th, we will end up going to Salisbury's arena. And that is regionals where we will be wrestling from North Carolina up to Maine over to Ohio. So it's the top region. So you have all of the top kids from all of the different states. You have to place up to 5th to go on to nationals, and nationals is when they actually have people fly in from California and all over. So it's actually something to see. It's kind of crazy.
Just so you know what the acronym is, it's MAWA's Middle Atlantic Wrestling Association. So it's Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, sometimes New York.
wow.
And so all these kids come to one arena and they start filtering it out, filtering the kids through to go to the nationals,
Very good.
which is a big deal.
So
Well, you'll make sure that everybody gets their certificate. And look, if you, because they certainly deserve some recognition. If at some point in time when they're not busy wrestling, you want to come back and have a group picture
we
here,
can definitely do that.
we will certainly accommodate you.
Now, Brightburn wrestled really, really hard this weekend. He did place, and he is already heading to MAWA's. So, yeah. Skylar. All of them we have in this right now. But the rest of them, we can definitely.
That would be nice. We would look forward to it. And by all means, tell them how proud we are of them,
We definitely will.
their efforts.
Absolutely.
If you're not doing anything on Friday night, the banquet for the wrestlers is at Betterton Spider House at 5:30. Any of you would like to come join us?
This Friday? Very good.
Yeah, it's not too far from your house.
Well, they deserve another round of applause. And I tell you, that, as I said, the coaches deserve a lot of credit because they got a bunch of dedicated coaches, for sure. Okay. Tom, we have a liquor application, public hearing we need to perform tonight.
Yes, Mr. President, I recommend we proceed by, first I'll read the notice of the hearing into the record. Then anyone who is going to be testifying either for or against the application, I'll have them come up, I'll swear them in. We'll start with the inspector, then with the applicant, and then with anybody opposed to the application. So the notice reads as follows. Application has been made by members Marshall D. Owings, J.A. Owings, and Casey C. Owings, representing North Point Marina LLC for a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license on the premises known as North Point Marina, 5639 Walnut Street, Rock Hall, Maryland, 21661, which shall authorize the holder thereof to sell beer, wine, and liquor at retail at the place therein described for off-premises consumption. A hearing on the application will be held in the County Commissioners Hearing Room, Art Clayton Mitchell Jr. Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, on March 18th, 2025 at 6 p.m. At that time, any exceptions to the application will be heard. This is by order of the Board of License Commissioners for Kent County, Maryland, Saunder and Blackiston Clerk. It was published in the Kent County News on February 27th, 2025, and again on March 6th, 2025. Anyone who may be testifying in this matter, could you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief? Thank you. Inspector, why don't you come up first? And I would note for the record that this location has had a liquor license before under previous ownership, and this has gone through legal review and staff review, and everything appears to be in order, and we don't see any issues or problems with the application. So with that, I'll turn it over to the inspector.
Thank you. Good evening. The applicant has met all the requirements for this application to be considered by the board. The application has been approved through legal review. The previous owner of the establishment has surrendered their alcohol license and was issued a prorated refund. So these are the new owners of North Point Marina. I've been out and inspected the place. There's no alcohol located on the premises. It was all taken out when the old owner went out. So if I can, I would like to call up Mr. Owens and let him tell you what his plan would.
Sit down here?
Yeah, we can sit right here.
Gentlemen, ladies. As the meeting ran before, you know, we're doing the same thing. We're trying to provide beer, wine, liquor services to our boaters that come in, you know, for the weekend and our seasonal slip holders. Very small, you know, not a big establishment, but looking basically for, you know, just to carry on what the previous owner had in her license.
Sure. Okay, anybody, this is a time when anybody that wants to speak for or against this application, feel free to do so. I hear none. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Class A beer, wine, and liquor license for North Point Marina LLC.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See
We're
what's in the
excited.
back.
We're excited. Glad you passed that background check.
We have, I guess we need a motion to go into legislative session.
Yes, you do, Mr. President.
I'll make a motion to go into legislative session.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
And I'm going to turn this over to Mrs. Heller because she prepared this legislation, and I'm happy to add anything that may be needed, but I'll turn it over to Shelley at this time.
Absolutely. So a few years ago, the state passed new legislation for cannabis. And one of the elements of the initiative was that every jurisdiction would be receiving money from the tax revenue on cannabis sales. And even though we do not have at this time an operating dispensary, the formula was based on past incarceration of folks for marijuana charges, et cetera. So the formula has nothing to do with where the actual cannabis is sold at this point in time. We are also required by law to form a committee to disperse the money, and the money can only be used for certain items. It's very particular in the law what the money can be used for. So in Kent County, we have a lot of boards, committees, and commissions currently. So instead of creating a new board, committee, or commission, it was suggested that we use our existing LMB, Local Management Board, to perform this function. Several of the smaller counties are doing something very similar. So the LMB will be responsible for coming up with these specific types of initiatives that would be funded with this money. And then they would be responsible for accepting grant applications and making a recommendation to you for disbursement of the funds.
In essence, we can't distribute any of the marijuana tax money we receive unless we set up a mechanism for doing so.
That's exactly right.
And this sets up the LMB to handle that rather than
Correct.
creating a separate board.
And I guess this would be an appropriate time to say that I got a phone call yesterday that we do now have a licensed cannabis dealer in Kent County. The one in Millington was approved. They've got the they've got their license. Supposedly, they were the first one out of the 200 applicants to receive one, that's what I was told, and that they'll be, we'll hear more about it when they have some type of a, I think someone from the cannabis business in the state of Maryland that oversees this will be attending for an open house, a ribbon cutting, and
Oh, okay.
so it's nice, I guess it's a good idea that we did this today.
Yes, yes.
Any-
So you would just be introducing this. What would happen is if you wish to go forward with it, and staff recommends that you do, because if you don't, then you're not going to be able to realize any of the tax revenue, that you would direct the clerk to schedule it for public hearing, and then after the public hearing, you would come back for third reader and vote.
Do you have a brief list of what kind of things we can, or the LMB can do with this money?
So in this legislation,
Yes.
we chose to keep it, it basically mirrors the state annotated code, because we didn't want to lock ourselves into something that may change over time. So we mirrored the language that is already in existence. And so for those items that are, like, I can't emphasize it enough, it really, this is what the state, the general overarching types of initiatives can be funded, and then the LMB can fine tune it, but those fine tuning may change from year to year to year depending on the needs of the county. So
And as I assume, as we dispense that money to different groups, or we'll get a list of that, or
you will be
We'll
the
be made
approval
aware.
authority, correct?
where it's going.
Absolutely. So, funds from this fund, called the Community Reinvestment and Repair Special Revenue Fund, may only be used to fund community-based initiatives intended to benefit low-income communities, to fund community-based initiatives that serve disproportionately impacted areas as defined in the alcoholic beverages and cannabis article, for any other permitted uses as permitted by the alcoholic beverage and cannabis article, as amended, or for related administrative expenses. So the small percentage could be kept for administrative expenses. The funds from this special revenue fund may not be used for law enforcement agencies or activities, or to supplant funding that would otherwise be appropriated for pre-existing local programs. So that's almost verbatim from annotated state code. From here, the LMB could say, you know, the low-income community needs after-school tutoring. Or maybe there's a low-income community that needs a new sidewalk. That could be funded through something like this. So it's really wide open. And when they put out a notice of funding availability, then governments, nonprofits, organizations can submit proposals that could further clarify how we want the money to be spent. And so, you know, we have been receiving these monies. We have received a couple of disbursements. A very small percentage of the tax revenue that is received by the state will be put into this fund on a quarterly basis from now until they change the law. That doesn't equate to be a lot of money for the county. It's hard to estimate what the actual intake from that will be, because I expect it'll change over time. But in addition to that money, we're also receiving money from conversion fees. So we've had this one-time infusion of money into this account, and that is from a dispensary that went from a purely medical license to a recreational license. So those are one-time fees. That'll happen once and only once. To date, the last time I checked with Ashley, we've received about $220,000 or $230,000 over the course of the past year and a half.
My belief would be there wouldn't be a single dispensary in the state that would remain a so-called medical marijuana place.
I can't imagine why they
Everyone
would.
would be recreational. It'd be nice if some of the money could be used for drug treatment and education and go to help people who've been affected by
So
addictions.
that
Absolutely.
couple $100,000 you're talking about, none of that's been spent yet, waiting
No,
for
we-
this
Can't.
legislation to be
Correct.
approved?
Right.
Correct. It is in a special revenue fund. It is set aside. It absolutely cannot be used for our general fund. When Pat came in, or when she comes in a couple weeks, you will not see that money in her projections
Right.
because that is set aside for this use only.
All right, we need to. We need to move this forward.
So
If
the
you
first.
wish, and that's our recommendation, that you
Correct.
introduce it, move it forward. Otherwise, the money just sits there and it can't be distributed.
Sure. Then is there any other questions? John?
It only makes sense to move this forward and utilize the money for hopefully a good project. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the introduction of Code Home Rule number 2-2025 and to schedule a public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Now I guess we need a motion to go back into open session.
Motion to go back into open session.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. We are back in open session. Next on the agenda, departmental requests and updates. Kent County Office of Emergency Services and Chesapeake College Clinical Rotation Agreement.
And we are going to request that we table this item for this meeting. It'll probably be ready for the next meeting on April 1st, but right now we are still sorting through one of the clauses in the contract.
Yes.
Very good.
I'll make a motion that we table it until this is resolved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Next up, we have Dan Mattson and some other guests here to talk about the Millington Wastewater Treatment Plant earthwork coordination. You bring up who you need, Dan.
Sure. I think for the initial discussion, I have a pretty firm grasp on each party's position. I know we have some in attendance, and as required, I believe they could come up or speak up as needed.
Mr. Hodgett's here? I don't see him.
No,
Don't see him either.
I haven't met him myself.
My understanding is, I think he was intending on being here, I believe, but
I spoke to him earlier today. He said he was planning on it. I didn't receive a firm commitment. So,
Well, do we, let me, hold on just a second here. Because he was planning on being here. And he said it might be 6:45 or something when he got here, so just,
going to move this to a later point in the agenda, and
well, I'm just looking, I don't think there's anything else. This is the last thing we have.
Right, we do have Mr. Miller from HR is here that would like to speak with you about one item, but
Let's
it's not
take-
going to take 15 minutes, well, unless you
Well, let's
talk
take him.
very slowly.
And we have a closed session. Is that still?
We have a closed session on the agenda.
We may just, I'd like to wait and see if he shows up, because it'll be all, I know a couple other parties are here. I'd like him to be here too.
the front door does lock at
that's a good
6:30.
question.
John should still be here. I'll check.
Jim, you want to come up and take care of your item for now?
Nice work, Dan.
Thank you.
I do like that Dan brought a calculator, though. That's smart.
Can you make phone calls off of that?
Do engineers still use slide rules? Do you still use?
No.
No.
Thanks for giving me a couple of minutes. I know it wasn't scheduled. A while back, the board approved and gave Shelley authority to make conditional offers of employment for paramedics so that we could continue to move that along as quickly as possible. Most recently, OES has 3 vacancies for EMTs, 1 full-time, 2 part-time, and we have 3 candidates available. But the next meeting of this board is in 2 weeks' time, and if you will grant Shelley approval to make conditional offers of employment for the EMTs, we can have all 3 of these people on board by the time this next meeting's even coming up and save us 2 weeks in the process and get Pete back up to staffing. So I'm here to ask for
Now, these
your
are,
permission.
these vacancies are because of, we lost some people? Or were these new positions that we budgeted?
I think it's a combination, but I'd have to defer to Pete.
I can answer that. They are, we did lose
Can you move
some,
forward so the mic can pick you up?
we did lose some positions, but they are already approved positions. They're not new.
They're not
These are to
new, and
fill
they're
current
budgeted positions. They're-
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood.
We're just
the
filling
question.
some vacancies.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we can, if the board would consider that, then we can work with Shelley over the next day or two and get these folks in and go through the pre-employment process. And by the time April 1st rolls around, the next time this board meets, we can have these folks on board. So we thought it was worthwhile to bring this forward and not lose a couple of weeks in process and possibly a candidate.
Any questions, gentlemen?
So I'll make a motion to allow Shelley to approve the conditional offers of employment for the EMTs.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Very good.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And Pete, the new building it's coming along, it's looking good.
Yes, sir.
And if maybe give me a little rundown, maybe between Dan and you about the leak at the 911 center. Where's that at?
I can bring you up to speed on the view from below. This past weekend, it wasn't wet with all the rain that we had. So I think the temporary patch that Dan's crew has effectively stopped the water from coming in to where our equipment is, but I have no clue where it's now going. Water's going to go somewhere off that roof. It's not funneling into the computer equipment.
So, yes, the roof leak has been blocked, basically. There is a inlet drain on the roof that has been covered up so that water cannot enter, and there hasn't been water getting into that area. We haven't TV inspected it, but based on our review with a roofing contractor that we brought out and the lack of impacts from recent rain, it is a fair assumption that that roof drain, which flows internally through the building, it's a flat roof, it doesn't have gutters on the sides, the pipes come through the building. That pipe is the issue. If it were as simple as repairing that pipe, we could move forward quickly. That pipe is generally located within the CMU, the concrete walls of the building. So it would require wall demolition to really access it. And we're exploring options to slip line that pipe, line it from the inside. We have had a couple different contractors out to inspect the condition of the roof. and I believe I have a meeting later this week to sum up our options with those contractors. I anticipate that at the meeting, the next meeting, April 1st, we'll be in a position to recommend, to provide you with a couple options ranging in magnitude from a spot repair to a roof replacement for your consideration, as well as a recommendation associated with that. So we seem to have identified that the biggest and most urgent problem is the roof drain pipe, which goes in the middle through the CMU of the building. We have a few ideas on how to fix that, but in the past year, we did have infrared inspection of that roof, and it's a white diagram where there's red, where moisture infiltration was determined to be present, and the building looks good as chickenpox. It's full of red dots. The roof is in need, whether it were to happen immediately or short term, within the matter of years, it is in need of a roof replacement. But this specific issue could be solved on a bit more limited basis. So we are finalizing the costs associated with that this week and intend to bring that to you at your next meeting.
So the bottom line is, we're not really sure just yet what's causing it,
No.
or how we're gonna go about fixing it.
I believe we've settled on the options, and we're working out the costs associated with those options, because it would be slip lining the pipe and some spot patching of the roof material on the low end, or on the high end, a full replacement with, and then we're exploring right now if there's any kind of middle level option, but I think we have the two main methods pretty much nailed down. It's just a matter of determining and getting quotes for the costs.
One other thing, Bayside Landing,
Yes, sir.
well, let me just say John and I both have visited there I think John was down there Sunday, was it? You were there Monday? One of those
Couple days
days.
ago.
Probably, I think it was Monday, because I can just tell you that Monday and Tuesday were two pretty days, and there's pilings there that could be used. There was three excavators that they used to handle those pilings. And the only thing that I've seen that's happened in the last 2 days, which was that one of the excavators disappeared. I mean, I'm sure they took it and moved it to another job or something, but I would have hoped that they would have been working on those days instead of not working. So when they come back, when they run out of time, it's going to be a little harder to make an argument that they did the best they could, because the last 2 days have been beautiful and nothing's took place down there. Just letting you know.
No, that is, I appreciate the input and feedback, and I have expressed those similar sentiments to the contractor. I do believe that they were working on Saturday, and the days they are out there, they are operating on extended hours and plan to continue Saturday work as well. Right now, they have about half of the pilings in place. I expect the completion of all pilings to occur next Monday or Tuesday. And next Monday, they will begin installing the whalers on the pilings to build the new bulkhead. My conversations with the contractor indicate that we are tracking towards mid-April. With my conversation this afternoon, he said that there's the potential for a 1-week delay on our target date, which would push us, I believe, into the third week in April. And we are, there was a delay related to a piece of equipment. The intended sequence of construction for that project was the first few pilings were supposed to be called, what's called the test pilings. And the test pilings are installed via vibratory pile driver. There's a portion that are vibratory, there's a portion that are typical drop hammer. The vibratory pile driver that the contractor had ordered for that project was held up at the border with Canada for about 3 weeks. There's some international relation issues going on with tariffs. get too far into the weeds, but
Now, look.
that did hold a
my-
piece of equipment, and
My only reason for bringing it up was just stating the obvious.
Yep.
What's been noticed, that's all, and passing it on to you.
yeah, so we have modified the sequence of construction with approval from the design engineer to begin the drop hammer pilings earlier than originally scheduled to attempt to make up some time. And it may be a scenario where all of the piers and bulkheads are completed, but there is some electrical work to do. Boaters would be allowed to return to their slips while we finish the electrical work.
Yes.
I understand that, getting the boats back in as soon as possible is critical here. And that has been expressed to the contractor as well.
Very good. And just for my colleague, go ahead, John, you have.
And if the contractor goes past the or the finish date, does the contract have a clause in there where they have to pay a daily reimbursement fee of?
Yes,
Liquidated damages?
I don't have the figure offhand. I can certainly confirm
there is-
that for you,
There is
but
a penalty for going
Yes.
beyond.
yes.
Very good.
No, I was down there last week, and I called
Yes.
Dan on a couple of
Okay.
occasions and just said, hey, just so you know, there's nothing going on. And the reason that I think it's important, I want to stress to the people that are listening and in the audience, we're the ones that are going to receive the phone calls, I can't get my boat in the water. So,
Absolutely.
Sure. And they're going to have to work really hard to do even what they said they were going to do a week later, that's my opinion. But hopefully they'll get it done.
Understood. Yes. I'm in daily communication with the contractor.
And the 60-degree days don't help. It helps them work-wise, but it certainly gets boaters
Not seeing
excited.
progress, yes. Not seeing progress and it being great boating weather, sure.
And I meant to do this when Bonnie was here, speak about it, but Miss Carolyn Jones has been in for the last 2 or 3 months trying to get some trader's license taken care of, so we could reissue her a new license. Well, and the office upstairs has worked hard to try to help it, and it's almost getting to the point where we may have to, we won't be long before we'll be reissuing another license. That's how long it's took to get something straight out of the comptroller, and it coming out of the comptroller's office. Well, I was here in the office, I don't know, it was one day the end of last week, and I had asked Bonnie while I was sitting in there if they'd made any headway with this license. And she said no. She said Economic Development and Tourism had been working on it for them again. And I said, do you have the comptroller's number? She said, yeah. I said, call her and tell her that the President of the Board of Commissioners would like to speak to her. Well, we got this guy right underneath of her. You remember the name, Lacey? Lacey was there.
Ronald Carr.
Ronald Carr. And he answered the phone, and Bonnie told him that I was there and like to speak to him, and he asked me a bunch of questions about who I was and everything, and I told him, and he said, and what's your problem? And I told him that exactly that this one bar owner was having trouble getting the trader's license that had to come from the comptroller's office, or the information anyhow. And he said, I'm going to get right on it. Well, I don't know, he must be sending that by mule pack or something, and nobody heard from, he said, I'm going to call her, I'll call her right now. And that's been 3 or 4 or 5 days ago, and so she's legitimately got an argument that she's been trying and trying and trying, so I just guess some of those 5,100 people they hired over there must not have been in that comptroller's office, the only thing I can tell you. But I just wanted you to know that more than just the office and Ms. Jones is trying to get this issue worked out. It's kind of frustrating. All right, thank you. Pete, now, Mr. Hodges, Frank's here, and I know Lance, you're here representing Mr. Russ Richardson. So if you all want to come up, we'll discuss this issue of, the way I just like to describe it is somebody's got dirt that needs to get rid of it, and somebody needs dirt. So we'll go from there.
Yes, this item is a continuation and an update.
And each one of those projects are projects the county is heavily involved in.
Absolutely, yes. We began a discussion at last week's meeting, in very brief terms, the county wastewater treatment plant, which is to be located on property owned by Millington Crossing, represented tonight by Lance, has an excess of fill material that we know at some point during that project needs to be removed from the site. Millington Senior Village is located nearby and are in a position where they have a earthwork deficit. They need, as you said, they need dirt. So we have been working on a daily basis since the last meeting to bring all the parties together in agreement and hopefully achieve a mutually beneficial share of the costs associated with the needed balance of the earthwork. So we did meet for over an hour last Wednesday, and we received an updated quote from Bramble Construction on Thursday evening. We have, Public Works has prepared a breakdown of those costs. I gave each member of the board a packet. Included in that packet is my cost breakdown. There are two maps. One shows the current permit plan, and one shows what I'll refer to as the north extension or the north road. There are an email copy of Bramble's schedule, a draft memorandum of understanding related to this matter, and an email summary from Mr. Richardson regarding costs not captured in this quote. So I will incorporate each one of those into this discussion. But starting with the cost breakdown, we endeavored to determine what would be a fair share of each item in Bramble's quote. Certain items, one party receives 100% of the benefit. For example, stripping and stockpiling the topsoil at the wastewater treatment plant. The county receives really the sole benefit of that. There are other items such as the export of fill material to the Millington Senior Village. The Senior Village receives the entire benefit of that. There are certain items where we felt all parties received a relatively equal benefit, so those costs were split 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Actually, we put 34% to the county and 33% to each other stakeholder. There are certain items where it was a 50-50 split between two of the parties, not affecting the third. So we have broken that down in the spreadsheet. If there's any specific line or a percentage you're interested in me explaining, I'm happy to do so. But the punchline of this item is that to make this project work, we determined a fair cost share for the county of $181,515.55. For Millington Senior Village, we determined a fair cost share would be $117,233.23. And for Millington Crossing, whose really, their benefit is the access road that we're cutting into the site. That access road does provide access to the rest of the site. The county's wastewater plant absolutely needs it, but it has been designed such that it would provide the basis for future development in the area benefiting Millington Crossing. They have the smallest piece of this at $20,652. Once those
That 20,652, is that for the north entrance,
no, that is benefits.
the one coming from Food Line?
Yes. So there are a number of additional items after we broke down Bramble's quote that had to be incorporated. The first of which is, in order for this deal to happen, Millington Senior Village will, it will take time to get this deal done. Bramble will hit a delay in their schedule. They're going to need to demobilize from the Millington Senior Village project for about 2 weeks. That demobilization cost is $10,000. So
Payback, Dan.
that is the discussion. That is part of the discussion tonight, yes. So,
The $20,000 cost that you had referenced, that would be the benefit to Millington Crossing development from the road?
yes, that is Millington Crossing's benefit from constructing the road now.
Because that would access part, the part of the road, or the road that accesses
If you go to
wastewater
the,
treatment plant comes off the road that's going to access Millington Crossing, is that?
yes, it cuts through Millington Crossing's property. It was designed based on their concept plans in terms of serving their future development in the appropriate location. So Millington Senior Village, their demobilization, or Bramble's demobilization on that project would add $10,000 to the cost. If the county were to assume that entire share, that brings the county's cost up to $191,515.78. From there, after some communication and discussion with Mr. Hodgetts, it was determined that the maximum contribution from Millington Senior Village would be a total of $113,000, less the $10,000 demobilization fee. So that brings Millington Crossing from $117,233 to $103,000. That brings the county share to $195,749.01. There is also a nuance to this where, and Mr. Hodgetts could probably explain in more detail, but for every day after beginning April 1st, that soil is not being actively exported to the Senior Village site, they owe $1,300 to their general contractor. Correct? I included a copy of an email from Mr. Richardson that was originally prepared by Bobby Bramble. Their schedule, assuming permitting timelines hit exactly where we intend them to be, and favorable weather through this entire process, has the start of export soil occurring April 14th. So we know that there's 14 days of $1,300 a day charges that would need to be assumed, and neither Millington Crossing nor Millington Senior Village were interested in paying that share. So that would potentially raise the county's share of this work to $213,949.01. Additionally, Millington Crossing has a strong preference towards what we call the North Access Road. And the North Access Road, if you look at the second and third paper in the attachment in the document I gave you, the black and white plan on large scale paper represents basically a straight shot to our site. The color plan behind that, if you see highlighted in blue, the road is proposed to jog to the north around a potential future retail site for Millington Crossing. The total value of that work is $21,875. Now, we have not received firm commitment from any party that they would directly fund that, but included in the packet is the draft memorandum of understanding, which indicates a proposal from Millington Crossing that if Millington Crossing later uses this access to access a future retail site, at that time, it will reimburse the county for 50% of the cost. So we don't know if that will happen, but, or when it might, but if it does, they have offered to cover 50% of the $21,875 at that time. Assuming, of course, we can't count on that happening or when it'll happen, if the county would take on that share as well in the immediate, that brings our total to $235,824.01, as compared to the, as I mentioned at the start, the county's calculated fair share of $181,515. Now, I know that the question will likely be asked at the end of the day, the bottom line, what are we saving by moving this forward now? I can't give you an exact number because that includes a number of assumptions related to inflation, gas prices, who may need dirt at the time we want to do this. I'm sorry, I'm an engineer, fill material at the time we will do this. but the straight line math shows that if the county were to do this ourselves with the small contribution from Millington Crossing, it would be about $63,000 more expensive. So our savings immediately are $63,000, though I note that exporting the material, if we were to do this in the future, that depends on who wants it and how far they are from us. So we can't quantify right now the exact savings. It would likely go up from that $63,000, but $63,000 is the baseline we have calculated.
So you're saying it was $63,000 cheaper to do these?
To do this
Yeah.
now, under
Right.
this,
By all the three parties coming together, makes this project, saves us, even with the downtimes and stuff, it saves these projects, it saves us 60-some thousand.
Well, the one downtime wasn't calculated. Nobody knows who's paying for that.
the general contractor,
Yeah.
that is proposed to be paid by the county. And that was factored, assuming Bramble hits this schedule to the day, which has a number of factors, as I mentioned, it's
Which
getting.
isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen. Have you ever seen one that did?
Says the contractor.
Have you ever seen one that
We
did?
just-
Come on, let's be realistic.
No.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And nothing against Bramble, it's just weather and
There's whether, there's,
whatnot.
all of these factors are outside of the county's control. It deals with state permitting, it
Well, I
deals
think
with
that
weather.
obviously goes with any
Any
project
yes,
you do.
yes,
It's
Absolutely,
not-
that's, no, exactly.
But that would be assuming the county takes the full brunt of the scheduled 14 days plus the north access. If we were to nix the north access from this completely, assuming that would not offend Millington Crossing, the savings would be about $85,000. And we feel, in the opinion of Public Works, that north access doesn't really provide any benefit to our project. So, with that said, there is a draft memorandum of understanding I have referred to, and on one of our calls recently, the framework of the associated agreements was discussed. I believe Mr. Yeager would be able to give a little more insight than I can on exactly how this would be set up and what commitments would be made in the contract by the county, though the draft memorandum of understanding I have, that I provided you a copy of, was received about noon today, maybe a little earlier. And it does not include the county as a signatory on the document.
Right.
So we have not seen a draft agreement for the county to sign at
Well,
this
before we
time.
move forward with that, suppose we hear from the other two parties as far as, is there agreement or disagreement as far as the numbers, I guess, that
Sure.
you've quoted. Lance, you want to go first?
Yeah, the numbers are, he's quoted some numbers that I haven't heard, but I know that there's been some discussions going on that I haven't been a part of. But generally speaking, the numbers that matter are the numbers that are my understanding. So, the big question that we've had on our end is that, these costs, as of now, because the county is not a party to this MOU, it's anticipated that Richardson Properties will front these costs, that they'll pay these costs up front. And so the question in our minds is how are we going to get reimbursed from those? And so that's more or less the part of the discussion that we wanted to bring here tonight is how do we get reimbursed for those costs?
I'm sorry, I think I missed something.
He-
Say that again. Or-
Yeah, so this draft memorandum of understanding that we have going around, it's a memorandum of understanding that's an agreement between Richardson Properties Corporation, Millington Crossing Associates, as well as the purchaser of the dirt. So, right now, as it's anticipated, is that Richardson Properties will be paying David A. Bramble to do this work. So because the county's not, we don't have a contract with the county to purchase this property yet, and they're not a party to this MOU because we don't know how they could without your approval. So the question that we had coming into this is if this is approved, how will those costs be reimbursed?
I have a question for you, Lance. Are you looking at just the cost for the contract with Bramble? Because I know there was some after-the-fact discussion or brought up about Mr. Richardson is looking for additional costs such as his attorney's fees and perhaps engineering fees to be reimbursed by the county. So I want to get some clarification. Is that still, or is that his position?
No, those
or-
things are not what we're talking about here.
Okay, you're solely talking about the cost of Mr. Bramble's work.
Correct. So, you know, I don't know if the county is willing to become a party to this agreement or not. If,
Well, the county doesn't own anything.
That's the challenge we
So
have is.
I'm not an attorney, but we don't own anything.
exactly.
No,
So-
you're saying the same thing that I've said,
So
that
that's-
that's the challenge, because we don't own the property. We're not yet a contract purchaser because we haven't even gotten the appraisal back yet.
So I don't know if you're
Yeah.
ready to get to this part of the discussion or not yet, but
Yeah.
what I was going to suggest tonight is that we get the ball moving on that sale of the property. I drafted a letter of intent this afternoon that I would like to propose to the county. I gave it to Mr. Yeager about an hour before this meeting, because that's when I got it done. But it's basically a general agreement. It's a very basic agreement that we're going to enter into this purchase of this property. The agreement would say that the county will pay for the fair market value of the property. And the way that that would be determined is that the county would hire an appraiser, and the appraiser would determine what that fair market value is.
And I think I heard just tonight before the meeting that you have one lined up.
Yes, he is completing the final, he needs to meet with property owners, because we're obtaining an appraisal for both Mr. Richardson's property, or our portion of it, as well as a property across the street, which is needed to, the pipe coming out of the wastewater treatment plant needs to get to the stream. It would need to cross the road and go through one additional property. He's meeting with that property owner on Monday, this coming Monday. We anticipate having both appraisals next Friday. So the appraisals should be here about next Friday.
And then the only thing that I would suggest to that is, I don't know that Richardson Properties would necessarily disagree with that appraisal, but if they did, then we would ask that they would be able to hire their own appraiser and then we could look at the two appraisals together. But we don't anticipate that would happen, but that's what I have in the draft agreement right now.
Right. And one of the things we would be looking at is, with regard to the purchase price, is to include, rather than, I think, Mr. Richardson paying the county cash for the costs attributed to his development using the road, we would take the value of that and put that in as part of the purchase price. So, for example, if the purchase price is $100,000, then $80,000 would be in money and $20,000 would be the benefit that Mr. Richardson gets from the road. That's what
Or deduct that from what they are advancing for the site preparation.
whatever, to have some type of offset for that. And then just with respect to the MOU, the county's not a party to that for the reasons that have been brought up. However, the MOU does talk about what the county is expected to do or is anticipated by the parties to do. So that's significant in that.
Tom, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Before we go further with the MOU.
Yeah.
If I could,
Yeah, sure.
Commissioner's.
I'll yield.
Original question.
Yes.
Just to reconfirm what Mr. Richardson stated via email Saturday, he does commit to $20,652, the share we have calculated herein.
And that's exactly the number I have written down.
Yes. Okay.
So we're all in agreement on that number.
On the Millington Crossing number. And then I had gone through a number of scenarios with Millington Senior Village. But Mr. Hodgetts, just to reconfirm, $113,000 would be the total investment for Millington Senior Village, with $10,000 of that being Bramble's demobilization fee. Therefore, the cost share towards the work discussed tonight would be $103,000. That is correct?
That's the number we've agreed to,
Yes.
103,000, okay.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm sorry to sidetrack this whole conversation, but the reason I brought that up is because my suggestion would be that those reimbursement costs would come through that purchase. So they would be included in that purchase and sale.
Well, when I came here tonight, and I was under the impression that, obviously, that it's all, pretty much everybody's in agreement of these numbers, or at least from listening to the three of you. My only thing was I wanted some guarantee that, obviously, that property would be ours at some point in time. I mean, if it's not, then we've certainly invested one hell of a lot of money for nothing. I mean, obviously, I think everybody knows that, or I would think knows that we're going to buy that property. That's what we're here to talk about. is
That's
whether-
why I think it's important to have that letter of intent signed by both those parties as soon as possible. And
I don't disagree with that.
And I have a copy of it. If the commissioners would like the copy that I drafted, I'm happy to give it to you. If not, Mr. Yeager does have it, and he needs to review it before you can
Well,
consider it anyways.
I would think he probably does.
And with respect to,
Let me just say, the letter of intent, part of it is, it says that Mr. Richardson would not market the property to anybody else
Correct.
pending, although I would suggest it's in Mr. Richardson's best interest not to market to anybody else
He wants
because
as
he
bad
can't
as
build
we
it, he
do.
can't
So, I
build
mean,
the
he wants
development
us to
without
have
the
it just
wastewater
as
treatment
bad as we
plant.
need it.
Right.
Yes.
He needs it as well. So he
Right.
wants to, there's no doubt that that's going to happen, but
with regard to
Yeah.
soft costs associated with this work, yesterday morning, Mr. Richardson sent me an email that says Saturday, he committed to the construction number we've mentioned. He also stated yesterday morning, I do want to reserve the right to raise the issue of our expenditures if I am not happy with the appraisal. And he provided a breakdown of those expenditures. That includes survey,
it was $20-some thousand.
survey planning studies, engineering, legal fees, and a billing rate of his own time. That was $26,500. And in the memorandum of understanding, which the county is not a party to, it does include a clause that states, the parties anticipate that Kent County will reimburse Millington Crossing Associates for the wastewater treatment plant site portion of costs incurred by DMS, the engineering firm.
If I can just interject real fast here. So we're not a party to the MOU, however, we're aware of the contents of the MOU. And the MOU discusses obligations or expected obligations of the county in the future. So therefore, if we are not in agreement with anything in the MOU, we should voice that, because if we acquiesce in it and do nothing, even though we're not a party to it, that could be problematic down the line. One, I think that for us to act in good faith, if we know what's in here and we find something objectionable to us and we don't raise it, we're not really acting in good faith. And second, even though we're not a party, if other parties rely on this to their detriment, that could put liability on the county. So my suggestion would be that even though we are not a party to this MOU, that we should let the parties to it know as whether or not we are in agreement or not, or supportive or not of the obligations or expected obligations of the county that are set forth in the MOU.
Would you like me to do so? Yes, okay.
Yes.
So the MOU, you have a copy of it. It's the only stapled document I provided to you. And I did highlight certain portions of that document that I would like to draw your attention to. And really, my first concern is the entirety of item number one. The item number one deals with the temporary access road. And despite clear statements on my behalf that I made in a meeting last Wednesday, and documentation in email when I was transmitting my cost breakdown, this idea of the north access road that's shown on that color drawing keeps finding its way back into agreements. I have, on every step of the way, excluded that because I do not feel the county derives any benefit from it. It purely is to the benefit of Mr. Richardson and a future potential retail use adjacent to our site. So it ponders, or it basically writes into the agreement that will be constructed. It notes that this permanent access, which will be constructed by Kent County, Maryland. Our staff will not construct it, I promise you that, but the funding of it, constructed by Bramble, is something that I have endeavored to exclude from our portion, but it is included in this MOU. Further, I mentioned that it does propose a concession from Mr. Richardson that 50% of the cost would be reimbursed to the county if and only if he were to take advantage of us relocating that road. And that reimbursement would occur when he does so.
Yeah.
So that could be next year, 5 years, 10 years, or never. We don't know. In section 2 on the next page, under item B, the second bullet point, Okay, no, that's not an objection or issue. That just clearly states Mr. Hodgett's commitment of the 103,000 that we had mentioned and the fill quantity, which we all agree on. The bottom of that paragraph, before I get to the bottom, the middle of that paragraph raises a concern to me, because it does state the soil should meet or surpass compaction of at least 95% maximum dry density, and it references an ASTM standard. That is a standard for fill material, yes. Any material the county bought for a project would need to meet that standard. We have done soil borings on the site. The borings favorably show that the soil should meet it. It's a 6-acre site. We have not tested thoroughly throughout the entire thing to ensure, to have the assurance that all that soil will meet that standard. And should portions of the site, so significant portions of the site, turn out to be bad soil, that would be a significant issue both in our commitment for the quantity of fill to be provided, as well as the timing at the $1,300 a day damage. So that is a significant concern. In any type of deal like this, that would be a concern, because we don't know the characteristics of the soil in all different pockets. There could be a pocket of bad soil. It could be small, it could be large. We don't know. At the bottom of that, it references, I'm sorry, I wrote in 13,000. It's 1,300 per diem, 1,300. That was, when this was transmitted to me, that was X's after conversation with Mr. Hodgetts. That number is 1,300. For every day after April 1st. The third section of this agreement deals with Kent County reimbursement to Richardson Properties. Again, I defer to Mr. Yeager, but the idea of a commitment of county reimbursement and an agreement that the county is not a party to, I defer to Mr. Yeager on that one. And then finally, under item 4, I note that the parties anticipate that Kent County will reimburse Millington Crossing for for the wastewater portion of the costs incurred by the engineering firm. That is not factored into any of the costs I have presented tonight. I don't know what that cost is. But to that, it would be my response to Mr. Yeager's question regarding comments, concerns, or reservations about this agreement.
I think I've already addressed the significance of this, even though we're not a party to it. If we know what's in here, and there are things in here that we don't agree with, but we don't voice that, we acquiesce in them, and the other parties rely on that, there could be liability for us. And plus, it's not, in my opinion, it's really not acting in good faith either. So if there's any concerns we have about items in this agreement, we should make the parties to the agreement aware of those concerns.
Frank had a question.
Comment, if I may. I'd like to forgive the interruption.
No, go ahead, I'm done.
Everyone, I'm Frank Hodgetts, Home Partnership, and I want to commend Daniel for doing a great job. A lot of disparate moving parts on this. The reason that we added the paragraph about the soil meeting the 95% Proctor is because this is a HUD-insured project. I have to meet that standard test for the soil. So as of today, we have engaged our geotech, John Hines, who has obtained the samples that we got today. So I should have the results, I'm hoping in just a matter of days, but I need to include this language so that if I didn't want to be compelled to have to buy soil if it didn't meet that compaction test. But I'm going to know that within a day or two. The per diem cost is not for the Bramble reimbursement. The per diem cost is for Willow Construction. So not only do I get the demobilization charge from the site utility contractor, but I'm faced with the same charge from Willow Construction. They have a site superintendent, they have a program manager, they have other staff that are associated specifically with this project. And that the date that we were given, that they can basically make this all work and not have to incur additional charges, was April the 1st. And so it was after that date, and as I mentioned today in a discussion with Mr. Mattson, is that I don't have a firm date when they're going to tell me, Frank, you now are into the period of time when you owe us this $1,300 per day. Will they come after me on the 2nd of April, the 3rd of April? I don't know that yet. I doubt it. But I think that if it got into a longer period of time, a month, I do think that they would come after me for that. And they would say, Frank, you really owe us something. And they would submit a bill to me, a change order on the Millington project. So that's what we're trying to protect and mitigate against some of the risk about with that.
If this came to our attention last week. I mean, barring this coming to our attention, you're moving forward and the county's not involved in any of this and you're moving forward, is that correct?
Yes, sir. The only reason, at this point, the only reason we're doing this is, it's saving us some money, but not a lot.
I understand, yeah, right.
You know, it's-
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. I mean, because this is potentially saving the county some money as well. But it's also, the way that I see it, we have quite a bit of risk involved on these per diems per day, you know, ifs and buts and candies and nuts. You know, it doesn't take long to get to $60,000.
I think what I was willing to do is, you'll see it in this, for a period not to exceed, and I put a number in there, or the per diem. So I haven't been able to figure out where my comfort spot is, but somewhere in there.
And I understand, look, I understand where everybody's coming from, but as far as me sitting in this seat, what I need is you guys to understand, I'm representing the county and the county's dollars, the taxpayer dollars here. And I don't want to do anything, you know, yeah, we want this, obviously, we all want this project to move forward, and I think we all feel as though it's going to move forward. But
Both projects.
correct, yes, sir, yes, sir, both projects. You know, I don't want to put the county, personally, I don't want to put the county, you know, behind the 8 ball, by being, you know, what's that old saying, penny, or dollar wise, penny foolish, or whatever the case may be. I mean, you know, I'll switch it around. So, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here, and for us to make this happen,
Well, didn't we say that by working these two projects together, we had a possibility of saving $60,000? Didn't I hear that said?
yes, sir.
So, I guess.
But we also have the possibility of running into these delays at 1,300 to, if it's for Willow, is it per day, and then whatever Bramble is per day.
Bramble would be
You
a guaranteed 10,000, Willow would be 1,300 a day.
Right.
And again, the agreement said commencing April 1st.
I guess what
We
I'm
took the most
saying, we
conservative
could
approach
be
possible.
wrong for 40-some days before we start digging into air pocket. If we considered the $60,000 savings by going forward, we've got some room there to make a little bit of 40-some days of mistake before we start. And I don't know any way you'd have a project. I mean, these two projects, not that we're involved a lot more with the housing project after we get this, we've made the commitment that we have, but certainly there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. I bet you'll be able to look back and see that, as Albert pointed out, we're talking about a $15 or $16 million project estimated, for wastewater treatment facility. And there's probably going to be bigger bumps.
If I may speak to Commissioner Nickerson's point, there are 10 days, 10 days between the 1st and the 14th, work days. So 10 at 1,300 is $13,000. So what I'm thinking that we could do is, I'd be willing to limit the county's upside risk to $10,000 if it meets that. If it goes over that, I'll pick it up. So that would mean that it'd be 10,000 to you, it could be 3,000 to me, if Bobby Bramble's schedule is correct.
So you would cap the county's exposure to 10,000?
Yes. So you got the 10,000 from Bramble, and then you would have the 10,000 additional cost. And I'll submit invoices. I'll submit invoices so you'll see what I'm having to pay.
And you'll limit their responsibility to $10,000 for this Willow issue.
And I'll pick up any difference above that.
So that would bring the county's proposed share to $205,749.01.
About the road.
If the north access road were excluded. So
Which you had excluded before, and I have no problem.
I have repeatedly excluded
Right,
it.
and I have no problem with that language either.
What was the total number, Dan? 205?
205,749.01, which would increase savings projected to right about 93,000.
So now we're at 93,000 instead of 63.
Correct.
Now,
Between those two items, yes.
the other question I
We haven't
had,
worked through the north
for-
access road yet.
for Shelley, and so it's my understanding that we've applied for a grant to purchase the piece of property. And gotten, and received it, is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
And we can use that money for this if we want to.
Right, but then we'll just have to come up with money when it comes time to purchase it. Is there grants out there for this, the work that we're talking about doing? I mean, in the future, 6 months from now, 2 months from now, whatever the period may
You
be?
mean for the plan itself?
Correct.
Right, yes.
We haven't got all the,
No.
we haven't got
Right,
all of
well,
that lined up yet.
Right, and I'm assuming that, I'm just asking.
But grants can cover that, like the USDA, RD grants, the MDE grants, the wastewater treatment plant grant loan. I know we went after FEMA, didn't get it. There was one other one that,
We've applied to federal earmarks for both.
Federal earmark.
Congressman Harris and our two senators. And actually, this Friday, representatives from Congressman Harris's office will be, have requested to meet with us at the site to further understand where we are in this process and what the, the driving factors of this project are. So we are seeing positive. Last year, we submitted and got turned down. This year, we're getting some real traction on it.
Which
So
really, I don't
yes,
want
is
to
the answer to the
complicate
question.
anything more than this is already complicated to start with, but Mr. Richardson's going to be, Millington will be receiving money from a lot of different areas.
Fair to say that, yes.
Developers, there's also all the customers of Millington somebody's going to, that money's going to, it's a bunch of places that the money's going to come from to fund this thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
not just all from us.
Of course, yes.
Right.
But if so say we go ahead and, we do this, and everything falls into place, and we pay for this out of our pot of money, one-time money, or through the grant, will we be able to submit grants for work already done?
no,
That's what
I've never seen a grant.
I thought that was the answer. I wanted to ask that out
They don't
loud.
retroactively go back and pick up costs already
Can't
sunk.
supplement.
Right.
So Lance, I got a question for you. The North County entrance, because what I'm hearing is that really that's not going to benefit the county at all. It could potentially down the road maybe, but no one has a crystal ball to really know for sure what might happen there. So if that's eliminated, is that a deal breaker for you?
I don't think it's a deal breaker, no. Unfortunately, this is the first time tonight that I've heard that objection. So I haven't had a chance to run that by our team to see what, but no, I don't think that would be a deal breaker. That's, how much do you think that's?
$20,000.
$21,875.
No, I certainly don't think it would be a deal breaker. He
It's-
still wants to get this work done.
It's certainly something I think that if there came a time when it was going to maybe show some benefit to the county as well, that we could negotiate then and talk about doing it then. But yeah, it might be more than 21,000.
I don't think in any scenario it benefits the county,
I mean,
because whether it goes straight in or it zigzags up, It actually is more of a pain if it zigzags up for us instead of going straight in.
Especially if you need a fire truck, for example, to
Right.
run through it.
Right.
It's a bit tight. I mean, I'm sure that it'd be engineered to meet all the appropriate turning radiuses, but a straight shot in certainly is easier, but.
The important point of this deal right here is removing that fill and giving it to Mr. Hodges. That's the important part of this deal right now. And in doing so, in doing that, you know, we already have the permits and the grading permit and all those things in place to go and do this work. So that's the important part of this deal. I don't think that North Access Road is an important part of this deal, but I haven't run that by anybody, so.
So what do we do?
I'm reviewing I had wrote down a short list of the key risk factors, the property ownership status, the permitting timeline, which we've addressed regarding the daily damages, the quality of fill material. I completely understand and appreciate why Mr. Hodgetts needs that to be 95%. And if that were my project, it would absolutely be a requirement. I don't know that I have no reason to question the quality of the fill material out there, but I don't know that there aren't pockets of unsuitable fill.
But assuming we have results within, let's say,
A few
48
days,
hours,
Right.
we could eliminate,
But that starts,
That could be
yes,
a non-issue.
yeah.
right.
And this deal is contingent on that happening.
And then, didn't the county get geotech as well?
Yes, those provided, didn't raise any red flags to me. So, like I said, I have no reason to suspect it, but I can't sit here and promise you it's all good material.
Just a clarification if I can.
Yes.
Because I wasn't privy to it. Weren't the borings done right where the site is, where we would be taking soil?
Yes, I don't recall the number of borings offhand, but across the 6-acre site, there was what we attempted to make a representative sampling, yes.
Thank you.
I would like to hear more about this letter of intent that you drafted up. You know, I just want to make sure that there's something there that indicates that the county has the only option, or the first option, to buy that property for the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, that's
If we move
that's in
forward.
here, yes. So,
Yeah, I mean, he says he's not going to market it to others, and it's a it's not, a letter of intent by its
It's not a
terms is
contract
not
of
binding,
sale,
but it
but-
sets forth the intentions of the parties, and it's the intention for Mr. Richardson not to market it to anybody else and to sell it to us, and it's our intention to buy it.
but that is stated in this agreement, and I'm happy to leave you a copy of it if you'd like, but like as I said
If
before.
Mr. Yeager has it, that's
Yeah,
fine.
he has to review.
The,
And things like that, Mr. Yeager can make sure that they're in this agreement.
Yeah, and from first, I did a quick glance, and it appeared that those things were in the agreement.
and it's my understanding, Dan, that within a week or so, we'll have an appraisal and we can agree on a price and have a sales contract hopefully very soon after that.
That's our hope, yeah.
Yes,
That's my hope also.
our appraisal was promised by the end of next week.
Okay,
Yes.
and
It sounds like the one item that we haven't, of the items that have been raised, the one item we don't have resolution for is in number 4, the DMS costs. Those are, we would have a cost share of that, of the DMS work for the wastewater treatment plant, but it hasn't been costed into these numbers.
Correct. Mr. Richardson had said I do want to reserve the right.
That's only if
To
the
raise the
appraisal
issue.
doesn't come out the way he thinks it should
If
be.
No, I
Right.
mean, it says the parties will anticipate,
Yes.
or if
So
the parties anticipate that Kent County will reimburse.
I think he's-
Reimburse a
I think he's
portion.
looking to get a reimbursement from the county.
That's the way
That's my
I read
read of
this.
it.
for at least the DMS, the engineering design portion of this, he said that was estimated $10,000 total, not county share total. And, yeah, among other soft costs, that totaled $26,500. And he said he reserved the right to raise that issue if he's not happy with the appraisal. But the MOU as it currently states
what
does.
are we going to reserve the right to do, Tom?
Well, we don't sign this letter of intent, we don't have to reserve anything.
I think we reserve the right to walk away if we don't think it's
Well, I
an
don't think,
appropriate,
nobody's
fair
walking.
deal for us.
Look, nobody's walking, I mean,
I do think, that, again, the developer can't build his project
Right.
without the sewer. And my belief is the town of Millington is probably not in a position to build a plant that would have the capacity for this development on their own. So the developer needs Kent County to build this plant. So it would, and, in some cases like this, you see developers make contributions. Maybe they contribute the land for a plant if that, or for facilities and then dedicate them to the county or whatnot. So this is a little bit unusual where we seem to be paying full freight
for everything.
for the plant. And then the developer needs this plant to do the project, because if something happens and this plant isn't built, this development can't be built. But then I recognize too that the county has earmarked for years this section of the county for development, and this is the first time we've had a serious developer come along that's worked with us to get something there. So there are just so many moving parts and factors to consider here.
So Dan, if,
Plus, we've spent about somewhere probably 800 to 1,000 to $1 million in designing a plant to go on that piece of property.
That's correct.
Right. And if you change that, you can add more to that.
Guarantee you.
And if we learn nothing else out of this exercise, there's two lessons that I think we should have all learned, and I'm not pointing a finger at any one of the three parties. This should have been discussed 2 months ago instead of at the last minute with us, because we're the ones that control purse strings, and we're the only ones that can make the decision. And to wait till this crunch time to where we're delaying one of the properties, I think was wrong. And I also think that that piece of property, once we decided we were gonna build a plan on it, should have been bought months ago. And then with, all this would have been for naught.
so Dan, and listen to everyone here, the bottom line, or the one that I think from what I've heard, that the three of us kind of somewhat agree to a certain extent, is the $205,749.01 cost.
Right, but again, that does not include the engineering, which this
Right.
MOU says we will be responsible for part of the engineering.
Which we don't know what that
We
is
don't know what it is.
at this point.
I mean, you can approve a cost share, and then the parties are going to have to make the numbers work based on what we approve. So, if you as commissioners say, this is what the county's contribution is, we're done, and then if the parties need more, it's up to them to work it out and figure out what they're going to do. So that is one way you could tackle this.
And what Mr. Richardson's offering is 50/50 on the engineer, is that correct? Cost?
The language within the MOU states that
It just says.
for our portion.
For our portion, right.
I mean, it's not the engineering we're doing for the plant, that's Mr. Richardson's engineering.
The costs associated with developing the black and white grading plan you see here, submitting for soil erosion permitting, going through the NOI process. The work DMS, the county is not contracted with DMS for this project, Richardson has, so,
And he estimates that at 10,000, is that what I remember?
yes, that is correct,
For the total.
for the total, not
It
for
would be
necessarily.
5, if we agree to 50/50 split, it would be 5 for us then. I guess what I'm suggesting is maybe you come up with a number that you
A
think
not
the
to
county,
exceed.
right, not to exceed, that's the county share, and everybody else is going to have to work along those lines. And that way you've made your decision, and you're, at least for this round, The next decision for you will be what you feel is fair to pay for the land for the wastewater treatment plant. That would be the next time we would come to you to negotiate that contract.
Well, there's not going to be a development if we don't have a plant. So I would hope that the county's appraisal meets the requirements that Mr. Richardson is actually looking for as far as the amount. Because I think all of us are going to benefit from it, meaning the county and Mr. Richardson.
And I spoke with him about that about 2 hours ago. And he truly does not anticipate that he will need to get an appraisal. He truly anticipates that he will be able to rely on your appraisal. We just put in the agreement that, you know, if for some reason he thinks that that number is really far off, then we have the
Then we
ability,
can negotiate.
we have the ability to go get another appraisal. And then look at the two of them and see if the first one was really off for some reason.
And that's fairly standard.
Right.
For something like this too. I mean,
Right.
you see how one appraisal comes out, and if somebody wants to get another one, you.
And I think he would have the right to do that anyway. Let's say we have an appraisal and we say this is the price, and Mr. Richardson disagrees with that, he negotiates with us, he's free, even if we didn't have it in the agreement, to go out and get his own appraisal and present that to us as part of the negotiating process.
He's really looking at this almost like an eminent domain proceeding. Because he's had experience with those in other jurisdictions, and that's the way he's looking at it. And so he's truly just looking at it, just getting that fair market value as determined by the government. But if that fair market value just doesn't look right, you know, the other party usually has the opportunity to have that second opinion.
Okay. So before I suggest a motion or an idea, I'm inclined to go along with the $205,749.01 and to increase that basically to 210, which will cover 50% of the engineering cost. And in a conversation with Dan earlier today, there was I asked him to reach out to the folks that are going to be moving the earth to talk about how this is, maybe could be paid for.
Correct. The earthwork, as I mentioned, would begin April 1st with the installation of soil erosion materials. Export would start the 14th. What I'm getting at is the construction industry. I don't need to explain it to the board in detail, but about 30 days to produce an invoice, and they have agreed to payment terms which would allow, if the county were to pay Bramble directly, there's some discussion about maybe Richardson paying Bramble and then county reimbursing, but if the county were required to pay Bramble directly, the timing would be such that that payment, that first payment, could occur in FY26 as opposed to FY25. So if the work happens in April, we're invoiced mid-May with a 60-day payment duration. We're mid-June, mid-July when that bill is due. So that would give us the opportunity to make our first payment of this in FY26 as opposed to FY25.
And discuss how we're going to pay that, whether we're going to use the $300,000 that's been allocated, or whether we're going to look at another funding source.
Which actually lines up well, because by then we'll have the appraisal back and hopefully some
We'll have
indication
everything.
of
Yes.
where.
We'll have everything.
Right.
Yes.
And Bramble is on board with that payment schedule.
Yes, I confirmed
From us.
that prior to this meeting, yes.
Fine with me.
Frank, are you good?
I am good, thank you.
Dan, you're good?
Yes.
Lance?
Yeah, I'm good. I just have a question about the last thing that we just discussed. So is the county considering paying for that directly, or is that part of the decision you're making tonight, or is it, up to this point, we've planned on paying for that up front?
So there are two portions of this work, what we call the primary and secondary work. The primary work affects all three parties. The secondary work is specific to the wastewater treatment plant. We're not going to get in and do half of our earthwork just because that's all the soil Frank needs. If we're getting an earthwork contractor in there, they're going to do all the earthwork. At economy of scale, remobilizations, et cetera. So the MOU addresses the primary work, which I believe would occur through reimbursement. However, I do believe, and Mr. Yeager can correct me if I'm wrong, based on the contractual discussions, the secondary work may be direct payments from the county to Bramble.
That's what I would think, because that benefits only us, so
That
it
is
makes
solely
sense
to
for us
complete our
pay-
portion of the
Right.
work we need.
For us to pay
While the
Bramble
equip-
directly.
While the equipment is mobilized and on site.
Correct.
Yes.
And what Dan says makes perfect sense.
So,
Just confused the hell out of me.
Yeah, there's subtotals, right? Yes.
yes.
So the subtotal for the shared amount, well, now we've played with some of the numbers, but just to look where the subtotal is, we're talking about the primary work subtotaling without the tweaks that we've just discussed is $216,288.50. You see that number? Right here.
216, 288, 50.
Yes. And so for the secondary work, the subtotal is the 124,987.50.
And actually, that is not correct, because that one does include the north access. So if I subtract out the north access, the secondary work would be 103,111, $103,112.50. So there's almost two contracts occurring. And to the secondary work, a potential direct contract with Bramble, we have reviewed their existing state contracts, and we feel like that can be piggybacked off of an existing state contract that they have. Needless to say, I mean, they certainly have competitive advantage, and there may be sole source justification outside of that, but we have reviewed
That
their
makes it
state contracts, and
Right.
it does
clean
pass
and official.
procurement.
And that would be our sole responsibility, because that only benefits us.
Yes. Mr. Richardson may need to be a party to that deal solely as the landowner pending timing.
Right.
But there is primary in which we all benefit, secondary is finishing our portion of our work.
He may need to sign off just to give his authorization, since we're on his land.
Correct. So the total remains at the 205 number, but yeah, it's broken into two contracts.
So really, I would say, I think what I'm hearing, I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth, but what I'm hearing is the preference of Millington Crossing would be to pay, and then we get
I don't know if they
reimbursed.
have, I don't know if they have a preference,
Okay.
but he just has, you know, he's really just putting a lot of effort to facilitate this and get it moving.
Okay.
You know, how it gets paid, whether he has to, you know, advance those costs or not, I don't think he cares.
Okay.
He just wants the project to get moving and progress.
And there may,
Either way, would he be pressed if we reimbursed in FY '26? Do you think that's a concern? We're talking about July 1st.
I don't think he would be, I don't think so, I don't think he would be pressed, no.
Okay, so it really doesn't, that side of it doesn't matter, payment terms doesn't matter, whether we're reimbursing or paying direct. It would be, at that point, our preference.
But we hadn't really thought a lot until the last couple of days how that would be reimbursed.
Okay.
My suggestion today was through the sale of the property, but it doesn't have to be that.
I can tell you from prior conversation with Mr. Richardson, we considered the option of converting some of that $300,000 grant to fund this in the immediate. And my question for that was, okay, well, then I don't have the money in FY '25 to buy the full property. Would it be possible for the balance to be paid in FY '26? And he said that wouldn't be a problem. So yes, what Lance has said is consistent with my conversations with Mr. Richardson.
But the bottom line is, you still need the 205 plus the 5,000 cap on top of that to make it 210
Yes,
for the engineering.
to include the engineering pondered in the MOU, yes.
If that's agreeable.
Yeah, I believe so.
And just one final complication. No, the timing of these agreements, be it the letter of intent be it an agreement between the county, Mr. Richardson, the MOU if we become part of that, however that comes together, those need to happen before your next meeting. April 1st would be that meeting. I believe that it would need to happen prior. So if a motion were to be proposed, it should also include, my recommendation at least, would be to include a delegation of signature authority to the president of the commissioners, as provided that the agreement is consistent with the discussion tonight and has been approved by our county attorney.
I'm available anytime I'll make myself available to sign it whenever it's ready.
I'll track them down.
Right, Dan, just to emphasize, the terms that have been in question have all been discussed here tonight. So as long as the agreements mirror the discussion, then with that as part of the motion, that can easily be delegated.
Right.
Now, how soon will we have this agreement ready?
Well, it sounds like the first hard deadline is getting the samples from the soil compaction tests.
If you want to strike that covenant, then yes. That condition. right?
But that's only holding
Yeah.
us up 2 days, and that's
Right.
not holding up, there's already other restrictions here that are holding us up longer than that
Because if
anyway.
the soil doesn't pass
Well, I
the
think we
test,
should-
the deal's off,
Right,
because you're not gonna
right.
want the soil.
Right,
Right, I think to protect you and us, we should
right.
wait the 2 days.
Well, I'm not planning on going out of town, so I'll be available whenever you get it done.
Because there is a required waiting period for soil conservation, public input.
We are actively within that. It began, I
Right,
believe,
but that's what,
yes,
but we
yes.
can't move forward until that's over, so waiting 2 days-ish for soil samples to come back doesn't hold us up
Who
anymore.
is preparing this thing? Is it you, Lance, or is it Tom? Who?
Well,
I think Lance has prepared, Russ Richardson and Frank Hodges, I think, have done a lot of the work on the MOU. I think Russ prepared it, and then Frank edited it. So I would think it's probably going to go back to them, or Lance. Lance has prepared the letter of intent.
Right.
I'm going to review that. Lance and I have had the lines of communication open, so if there's anything we need to tweak, I can discuss that with Lance, and then we can get that finalized.
Yeah, and not to add more complications, but I am leaving the country in 2 days for a week, so Chip McLeod will be doing anything for that week.
So will you be here Thursday? You're only going to be here tomorrow?
Sounds like you need to get it done.
I think,
But Chip has
Right.
much more knowledge about all of this than I do anyway, and he'll be here to take care of it, so.
So we can hammer through the details while we're waiting on the samples.
yeah, and I think we could probably, I'm thinking, Lance, if the MOU is substantially good, which I think it's substantially good, I did a quick look at it, I haven't looked at it thoroughly. We could have agreement on the MOU, or excuse me, the letter of intent is what I want to say. When I said MOU, I meant letter of intent.
Yeah.
The letter of intent looks like it's substantially fine, at least from what I've seen on a quick review. I will review that thoroughly. We could approve that without having the MOU. And it would just be subject, we wouldn't release the letter of intent until we have the MOU that mirrors the terms that we're talking about. Because I think both of these are kind of intertwined.
They're intertwined, but I think they could even be separate motions if we wanted them to be.
Well, I think we have one motion that covered both documents. So I think.
We haven't had a motion yet.
Oh, okay.
And Tom, I can still work with you on that while
Yeah.
I'm away.
Okay. Well, I was just saying that we may be able to wrap this up tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay? So I think the MOU may take a little longer than the letter of intent. So what I'm suggesting is we don't have to have them presented in one package. If the letter of intent is ready to go, we could approve that before the MOU.
And if I may, I think what we're looking for as well is that the commitment would be made by the county for the $210,000.
Right.
Correct.
Which, if we have that vote, then Mr. Richardson and I can proceed to execute the MOU.
Right, and I'm not that concerned about what you have in the MOU, because you're doing that knowing that the county's commitment is 210. So if you put other things in there, the county would not be bound by them because you have knowledge as to what the county's commitment is. So I'm good there.
I think that's all,
It's certainly been
I think that's all we
talked
wanted from the
about.
county was that commitment for purposes tonight.
Right.
Yeah, tonight, so.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to make this motion. I'd like to make a motion that we agree to cover $210,749.01 in an effort to coordinate between Millington Crossing and Frank's project up at the Millington Senior Project. That we work very diligently to have a legal review of the letter of intent, and that Frank and Mr. Richardson work jointly together to address the MOU, and that you've heard our concerns from the county tonight. Also, I think that we need to have the soil samples back that indicate that soil is appropriate for use as fill for the senior housing project. And that it would be preferable for us if we, and I know I'm making this confusing, but it would be preferable for the county to either put those off until FY26 in that budget cycle, as far as payment to Bramble, on exactly what the county's responsible for.
Did you say the 210?
$210,749.01.
Yep, okay.
As well as delegation of signature authority.
Oh. I'll make another motion.
Wait a minute, should we,
Well,
another motion or?
You want to vote on
Either
that?
add to that
You
one
wanna
or we'll do
amend
a
it?
separate one.
I'll amend the motion that we allow the President of the Board of Commissioners, Ron Fithian, to sign the necessary documents.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Glad we're able to work
It's
it out.
nice to be able to
I
work
guess.
it out, that's the truth. Because I will state again, that's two projects that are dear to our heart, and we want to see both of them take place. So, from here on out, feel free, our lines are open. If there's a problem going forward with anything, let's get to the bottom of it quick as possible. I think today's meeting proves that we can work things out. And Dan, I want to congratulate you for all the work that you've done as from last week's meeting when we realized the issue.
In a week, yes.
It was, you did a great job, and I applaud you for it.
Yes.
Thank you.
As well as the two people that worked to make it
I
happen.
second that as well.
Yeah, well,
The
good.
county's done a lot in the last.
I think he's done a heck of a job in a short period of time. So I'm proud of you.
Thank you, and the two lessons you mentioned are well received and understood, so thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Did we vote?
We have, this is,
I'm sorry, do we vote on the motion?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, just making sure.
Question?
Yes.
Make sure it's official.
Thank you.
we have, I'm sorry, this is public comment period. We have two people that have signed up to speak to us tonight. Judy O'Brien from Chestertown. Judy, please come forward. Welcome.
Thank you. And you'll be pleased to know that I'm not coming forward with a complaint. I have an invitation for you all. My name is Judy O'Brien. I live here in Chestertown. I've put together an ensemble of high school music students and local professional musicians, and they will be performing at the Mainstay on March 30th at 4 p.m. It's about a 1-hour program. It's a fundraiser that we're doing. It's a free performance, but we will be passing the hat to raise funds for the Kent County High School Music Boosters. This is the only, as of right now, public performance. We're also performing at Heron Point. So we have 5 high school students, a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and 2 seniors, performing alongside professional musicians from our community, including Philip Dutton, Sem Ortiz, Mark Quigley, Frank Gerber, let me make sure I don't miss anyone, Dave Sharp, Dave James, and they'll be doing a program of music ranging from Herbie Hancock to Mozart to the band Chicago. So it's a very varied program of music. It'll be at the Mainstay, like I said, in Rock Hall at 4 p.m.
On the 30th.
On March 30th. That's a Sunday at 4 p.m. It's posted on the Mainstay page. You can reserve seats if you like. This is our only public performance to raise funds, and hopefully we'll be invited to perform at Tea Party on the main stage. But as you know, the Kent County High School Music Boosters are in charge of fundraising for all of the band programs, from everything to dry cleaning the students' uniforms to altering the concert band attire for the new students that come in, to paying for a bus to take them to their annual spring band trip. And I didn't know this, but a charter bus can run $12,000 to $13,000 for the length of the stay, and the Kent County Music Boosters raise all of that money. So we are doing this outside of the music boosters, but we're doing this to raise money for the music boosters. So we would love to see you all there on Sunday the 30th at the Mainstay to enjoy the performance.
4 o'clock, you said.
4 p.m. on Sunday at the Mainstay, March 30th.
Very good. Well, thank you.
And that's it. So we hope to see you there and hope you enjoy the music.
Thank you.
We'll do the best we can to be there.
I hope to
Thank
see,
you for the
hope to see you all.
invitation.
Yeah.
I'll be looking for you.
Lacey, you'll make note of that for our
So
calendar?
before you go, and I'm trying to get back to it, you guys are going to be raising money.
We are going to be raising money.
And tell me again, because I was trying to find something when when you were talking. What are you going to be using the money for?
So the money is going to go to the Kent County High School Music Boosters. The Music Boosters raise money for supporting the Kent County High School band program. They pay for everything from dry cleaning the marching band uniforms to the concert band uniforms to meals for the students, water for the students when they travel. They offer scholarships so that the band can travel. They're going to, I'm sorry, I should mention, they're going to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee this year for the band trip to participate. I believe it's called Music in the Park program. And in order for the band to be able to travel as a group, and all of the band, the boosters also have to provide some scholarship money so that everyone can travel on this trip together.
I think we have a volunteer for a chaperone.
Oh, volunteer chaperone, excellent. So, and if anybody happened to have been at the Garfield for open mic last 26th of February, just passing a hat around the Garfield open mic, we raised a little over $600. $600 would pay for one full scholarship plus some additional. It costs the students about just shy of $500 to travel to the spring band trip. And that's out of reach for many people. So we wanted to do this project to give some of our more accomplished musicians an opportunity to punch above their weight and play with some professional musicians, perform publicly, and also at the same time raise some money to support the boosters.
So the money collected is going to the Kent County
Kent County High School Music Boosters.
Boosters.
Yes.
I think it's a very, very worthy project that you're doing, or efforts that are being put forward. And I'd like maybe to suggest that maybe we make a small contribution to the Kent County Music Boosters Club support our children in an effort for those scholarships. I don't know how you all feel about it, but,
I'm there. Just pick a number.
and we'll take it out of contingency funds. But I'll make a motion that we donate $1,000 to the Kent County Music Boosters Club.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
So I guess staff will,
Right, if you could call the county and we'll put you in touch with the finance office and figure out how to.
Mallory.
Yes.
Yes, and I will have Mallory Martinez, she's the president of the Music Boosters. I'll have her reach out directly. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That was an unexpected surprise, and I appreciate your support. And I hope you will come enjoy the music at the Mainstay so you can see what these kids are capable of. I'm really proud of them. Playing with professional musicians and the mentorship that they're earning along the way is really remarkable. And I'll throw in that the Mainstay, the Kent Cultural Alliance have been very supportive, as well as the Unitarian Church has supported us by offering a place for us to rehearse. So we've really gotten a lot of support from everyone in the community in bringing this project forward. So come on out and see what we've put together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye. Melissa Freeman, how are you tonight?
I'm good, gentlemen and ladies. I'm Melissa Freeman, and I am born and raised here in Kent County. I went to Kent County High, so it was great to hear her talk about how the students are really still doing well there. I remember going there and excelling there and have become successful after leaving here. But I'm here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I have a property in Wharton, Maryland, 24906 Lambs Meadow Road. And I accrued some water damages from my tenants. And I have been trying to get these tenants evicted for some time. Mr. Yeager was successful and helped me.
I'll disclose that I've represented Ms. Freeman.
Yes.
And in the matter, getting the tenants out of the
Yes, and he
home.
was successful in getting them out. But prior to them being evicted legally, they had got a backhoe sometime in June. And the neighbors in the community called me and said he's broke a water line or something. But I didn't really get the call until July 5th. But in finding out, he did all this from June till July. When the town came out, which was Public Works, on July 5th, I was en route to Wharton to do an inspection because I told him, listen, I can't just let you keep living and keep doing this land this way. My late husband, Myron Freeman, and I had let Mr. Dickie Thompson stay there. So then Myron is deceased now, and I'm the widow now trying to rehab and take care of this property. But in the interim of that, they caused the main line to break, and Mr. Nichols Plumbing was called in by Public Works to fix it, which was $2,300 or $2,400. I have it in my phone. Then there were other fees that were added on and some interest. So I've been trying to talk to Tracy Alsotin. I think she's a secretary maybe for you. And she was very nice. She was trying to guide me through. And I just said, listen, it's been 2 months, 3 months. I don't want this to go any further. There's interest adding on. Can I get some help? And she directed me to Mr. Mattson. He, after email and a conversation, very, very nice conversation, said, I can invite you, or you can come to the meeting. It's open forum, plead your case, and maybe they will give you some assistance on getting this done. There's a lot that I have to do at this property because they literally have destroyed it, but this was just one of them. So the water bill now is $2610.56, and I'm just asking on the mercy of the commissioners, could I get some help with this? Even if you said, hey, we'll pay half and I'll take care of the other half, but this has been an ordeal. I wasn't informed until I drove up and I said to Ron and, what was the other one? Chris, listen, I have a business myself, and when employees or people don't do things correctly, it's a domino effect. I never got a call they just had Mr. Nichols do the work and assumed that Aubrey and Donna Cece, who were my tenants, were the owner. I then said to them that day, you all need to change this because it's going to cause owners problems down the road. Put something where you have to show that you are the owner of the property. Because you just pull up and do the work and they tell you they're the owner, but they were not the owner. I didn't find out until the next day. Ron and Chris nicely came back out and said to me, you got something on your hands here, because we literally just wanted to walk away because they acted so abruptly with them. But I begged Mr. Nichols, please, can you fix it? And because he knew my husband Myron, he said, listen, and the Freemans, he said, Melissa, I'm coming back out on the strength of Mr. Freeman, Clyde, Cleveland, and your husband Myron, I'll be there. And he did. It's just that this bill is more than I expected. I probably could have got someone to do it probably for $400, to fix it. But I know Mr. Nichols is in business to make money, and he's probably charging his rate. But this is astronomical, and then now I'm getting all these fees adding on. So I just want to get this taken care of if I can, get some help, and I'll answer any questions. Yes, sir.
So the outstanding water bill is 26?
It's not the water bill, it is from, okay.
May I?
Sure.
Please, thank you. So, yes, Tracy Usselton, one of the administrative assistants for the Water Wastewater Division, prepared a memo for me detailing the specifics of this matter, because I have been in conversation with Ms. Freeman for some time. So the initial issue was July 17th of last year. Our meter readings showed that there was continuous consumption at the property, a leak. A utility tech went to the site and met with who apparently was a renter, and represented himself as the homeowner.
I can add, when we were in court trying to get them out, they made claims of ownership of the property or having a contractual right to purchase the property. And obviously, they weren't successful in that, but we saw similar representations made when we were in court.
So we went out to the property, one of my techs went out to the property. Someone who represented themselves as the owner said, oh, I don't think I have a leak. And we showed them the readings, and they said, okay, turn the water off, we'll fix the leak. About a week goes by from the 17th to the 25th. On the 25th, the tenant, Donna Gassell, called our wastewater department and said they had been digging in the yard to find a water leak, and they hit the water line. What happened was they were using, I believe, a mini excavator, and during the excavation, they started to pull it up. It separated the meter from the yoke on our side, and there was basically a geyser of water in the yard. At that
Our side of the meter.
on our side of the meter, caused by the tenant actions.
So at this point, there's damage on two sides. You had a water leak and.
Because the water was shut off.
Right, so if it was on their side of the meter, nothing would have happened, but since they damaged it so bad, it separated our connection to it, creating a pretty substantial water leak on the property that was unable to be stopped.
And who was doing that work?
The tenants did
The
that.
tenant did it and acted as if he
Yes.
was me, and they never called me, anything.
Much protection for the homeowner is when you rent something.
To Ms. Freeman's point, we had not reached out to her in that 8 days. I don't know that anyone had gone back after the initial visit with the leak and, hey, please just turn off the water and we'll fix it. That's not an uncommon response. No one went back to verify that the person who represented themselves as the owner was the owner. We didn't make any additional efforts to reach out. That isn't part of our standard policy, because we didn't have any charges really at that time. When they arrived on the 25th, they assessed the situation. This was an emergency. The volume of water that was leaving our facility, our infrastructure, if left unattended for any period of time, would have started having impacts system-wide on pressures, the water tower itself beginning to lose volume. And they made the determination that Richard Nicholson would be called, as he has appropriate equipment, to assist in repairing this leak. So I believe there was two tenants, two utility techs, plus Mr. Nicholson out there for some period of time until this leak could be stopped. And I believe a new meter put in place to stop any further leaks. I don't know the exact date, but I believe on that day or maybe the day after is when they had met with you and you had explained that you were the property
Yeah, I
owner.
was just tired of trying to get him on the phone just to do an inspection period. And as I tell him I'm coming down, that's when I get a text that, oh, by the way, we've had trouble with the water, but you never told me. And now that I'm getting ready to show up, you want to now tell me, because you know now I'll be upset, and I really want you out. So that day, I called Public Works myself to find out who was out here so I could let them know I am the owner and this is who you should have been talking to. They came all the way back out and they said, we're sorry, but we thought that they were the owner. And I said, well, how can you do that? Why something serious as this? Please put something in so the next owner doesn't go through what I'm going through. Please, from now on, make sure that the tenant is not perpetrating to be the owner. Because if this was going on, sir, I would have taken care of it, even though they were the tenants doing me wrong inside of my home. I would have gotten someone to be right on it, but I had no knowledge. And then, of course, Nichols got to charge his rate. I understand business, but I think unjustly is that I wasn't informed. And then after the fact, oh, by the way, you have to pay this. So I'm just asking for some help to get this taken care of. And that's why I'm here tonight. That's why I'm here.
In my opinion, in between the initial call and the significant leak, the break, had we consulted, had we double-checked, hey, who is this owner? Let's call them, and if they answer and say, yeah, I'm the person that spoke to you, they wouldn't have. Ms. Freeman would say, what are you talking about? She may have prevented the tenant from creating the much bigger problem. When my techs arrived on the 25th, they saw an emergent situation and they acted in the best welfare, health, and safety of the county and the integrity of our system. So I stand behind their actions on that day 100%. Could they have been prevented had we engaged Ms. Freeman prior? Yes, it could have been. And I do note that there were additional work orders at the property after July 25th. On the 30th, you called our department to say that the water meter pit was full of water, and the leak was on your side.
But Tracy, actually, I'm sorry to intervene, she had said that the meter was moving. So
Yes.
then I said to her, listen, that's on me. I will pay for that. Go ahead and get that taken care of, Tracy, please. And I told her, thank you for reaching out to me. And then we
spoke in December again about some issue where maybe the backfill on their side was not done properly, and Ms. Freeman called us out and said, hey, can you fix this up? Make sure my meter doesn't freeze.
Yeah.
There was costs associated with that one. Ms. Freeman
Exactly.
has paid.
Yes, I did.
The billing
Right away.
dispute solely relates to the resolution of the emergency situation on the 25th.
Yes, I did.
In conversation with Ms. Freeman, I completely understand. I empathize with her situation. I did agree to waive interest fees associated with this. It was my determination after consultation with the county administrator that this was an issue between a landlord and a tenant, not with the county excluded. That was my opinion, and that is our standard practice to let that resolve itself. I understand and empathize with challenges she's had with the tenants, and I said, the best I can tell you with the powers I have is I can waive that interest, but it's not our policy to assume responsibility for the cost of emergency repairs.
Can I intervene?
So, and I advised her that if she disagreed, I can completely understand, and that her option would be to come at a meeting during public comment and present the case. So that is where we are today.
Or take the tenant to small claims court.
Okay, that was just what I wanted
Okay.
to intervene.
Yes.
So, as Mr. Yeager knows, we went to court, and Donna Gazelle, who was on the lease, she convinced Judge Nunn that I should not be held liable for anything, so I can't go after her, because that day, he took her out of the eviction, so she's not liable, okay? So I can't go after her. Aubrey gets a SSI check, I guess. Then they moved in a mentally retarded gentleman who was Donna Gazelle's brother. I let the man stay in there because I said, God, he don't even know that he's really here. So I allowed the other gentleman who gets a state check of $1,200, and that's how I got my rent. Aubrey and Donna, who are healthy, abiding citizens, used him. And now Donna's skating somewhere around here. Aubrey, I don't know what he's doing, and Kenny, I think now has been placed in a home, who's by the state. But I can't go after Kenny, because my heart won't let me. But those two, if I could, I would. I can't go after Donna, because the judge took her off of the ticket. And then Aubrey only gets $700 in SSI, he claims. He's riding around Butler Town on a lawnmower, just, if you saw my property, you would say, okay, we're going to just cancel it out. I have so much to do there. They didn't cut the grass for almost 2 years. Trees, stuff had grown up to the house.
Yeah, Donna, the judge found that Donna no longer lived there, so he evicted Aubrey.
Wow.
But Donna lived there for 3 years.
He took no action against Donna because she stated that she was not living there at the time, in court or months prior. So
But she was living there during the leak.
She was, sir, I'm sorry, she was always there because the mentally retarded brother, she had to go there and take care of him. What she did was she said, I'm not going to live in there permanently anymore because I need a place for Kenny. If Kenny, they didn't slip Kenny in there, Kenny would have been in a home and she wouldn't have had, because they needed his money. So she slipped Kenny on in their army. And when I went there and saw him that day, I'm going to be honest with you, so I
may be wrong, Tom, but I think Donna's still liable.
She should be, but the Judge Nunn, she convinced him to take off the ticket.
Because I see it as two different things. I mean, the eviction's one thing. But now,
this is another thing.
now you're talking about,
Yeah, I run into a conflict here trying to opine on this issue because I represented Ms. Freeman
Right.
in the eviction. What I can say is there was Mr. Aubrey, I think it's CC was his last name.
Aubrey CC.
There was judgment in her favor against him. He was ordered evicted and he had to pay some money too.
She's not
God,
going to.
I don't think that money's collectible.
we don't.
No, and the
But she
state, I'm not
claimed
going
that
to
she
get it from the
wasn't
state.
living there anymore, so.
He texted me the day
What happened?
that he's talking about, so if you're not concerned of living there, how would you know? How would you not know what was going on? She was the one who texted me and said, hey, I think we got something going on here. And I said, well, I'm on my way down anyway. And then she sent me pictures of the yard where Aubrey had dug it up about this deep. And as long as that desk. And if you ride past it, you can see where he really dug it because I haven't put dirt back in. I'm gonna just have to do the, yard over, but.
There's two things that I think
Yes, sir.
I've heard so far. One is our public works employees, I have an app on my phone. It's on the parcels. And I can find out exactly who owns the property that I'm sitting out in front of. That might be something that you might be able to put in place, Dan, to
Yes.
assure that you're talking with the property owner.
We have counseled with our utility techs, the people on the front line of this, regarding those types of interactions and advise them that,
But from what I've heard here, and I don't expect Tom to engage in too much of it because he may have a conflict there, but Donna, I feel, is potentially still liable for the water cost or for the leak, whatever that cost was. And that I would suggest that you go to the district court and take her back to court. You may not even see Judge Nunn this time, you may see another judge, it all depends on who's there. But to me, I see it as two separate issues. One, Judge Nunn heard the eviction case, and two, there's some damages and costs associated with this tenant's neglect.
But Judge Nunn said to her, and she was happy that day because now she's leaving all the brunt to Aubrey. She doesn't even care that, he may not ever maybe get a place to stay because his credit's gonna be messed up when I finally get the time to go back and sue Aubrey. But Donna was taken off and I just felt like she shouldn't have been because she is the corporate. Aubrey's not that way. He just does dumb stuff. She's the one, the slick one. She's the one. So I was really upset that she skated that day. But what could I do, you know? And I'm just asking, if you say, Melissa, we'll help you with half of it, I'll be much obliged, and I'll go and do my part. Because like he said, soon as when I got a call from Tracy saying your thing is going to freeze, I said, go ahead and do it, and I sent her a check immediately, paid for it. Because I'm not the kind of person that is here for just a handout, but I think technically this was done wrong. I was not informed, and I did say to Ron and Chris, listen, something needs to be put in place, because y'all got a problem here, technically, in business. It's wrong. And if you don't correct it.
They acted in good faith, I think, but.
Oh, of course,
you know,
they were very nice to me.
What I would suggest that you do.
Okay.
Is that you take Donna back to court. And I know that's not what you want to hear. Take her back to court and see if you can get some resolution there. If you don't, then I would suggest you come back to us again and maybe we'll consider. But I mean, she should be held accountable for her actions.
And in the meantime, Public Works recommends no assessment of interest on this bill until this process can play itself out.
But that's okay with me if it's okay with everybody else.
Yeah, the bill itself, without any interest, is $2,506.29. We can let that sit
I
until
would just like to
such
see
time.
you make an effort to take her back to court.
Okay, even though
And
the judge said.
let the judge hear the whole story.
Judge Nunn is tough now.
I know Judge Nunn.
Judge Parks is a little easier. He's very, very, he talks and he's very theory wise. But Nunn,
Well,
So
whoever
I-
the district court judges that you're going to be before.
Oh, it
let
won't be
them-
Nunn?
Let them hear it again,
okay.
because to me, it's.
So do I have to
it's
get a
separate
lawyer involved again to write up all this
issue. Not
paperwork?
necessarily.
The problem she has with hiring a lawyer is there's diminishing returns, because
Yeah, but she doesn't have to hire a lawyer to go to
she
small
she
claims.
does not have to. The other dilemma with small claims is now there are limitations put on collection activities that a judgment creditor can do now in small claims. So you can't bring them, I believe in a small claim now, you can't do a lot of collection activities that you can on a regular claim. District court doesn't, or the state of Maryland doesn't allow that anymore. So there are challenges in collecting a judgment in small claims. You can get a judgment on the books, but collecting it is another story.
It's always been that way,
It's
Tom.
always been that way, but a lot of tools were taken away from judgment creditors by the legislature in small
All of
claims.
this money is owed to Doug Dickelson, is that what?
The great majority of it, the billing breakdown is such that $2,223.81 is owed to Richard Nicholson.
Yes.
And the balance, about $282 was our labor. So, $2,223.81 is Nicholson's invoice, yes.
And he has not been paid?
I do not believe so. I cannot confidently state right now whether the county has squared his invoice and is holding the bag or not, or if it's on him. I don't know offhand.
But he did the work.
He did the work.
Work's completed.
Work's
Yes, he
completed.
did the work.
Did it in a timely fashion.
Yes.
Did it as an emergency.
Yes, sir.
In my opinion, Doug, or Richard needs to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how we go about doing that, but in my opinion, Richard needs to be paid.
I will, I'll confirm that tomorrow, what his payment status is and how we can address that, yes, if it has not already, which it may already have been.
I agree with Albert, he ought to be paid, and you do with your diligence to take it to, see what you can get, taking him to the small claims court again,
Take Donna,
or Donna. yeah.
after Nunn took her off? You telling me, you think I
Well,
could be successful?
I'm just going by what John just was.
Right, so when a judge does something like that, isn't that the law? What can I do now to go back and get him to put it back on?
Well, I think what we're talking about is that there are two issues. He took him off the eviction issue.
Because she said to him, I wasn't living there. I wasn't even there. I don't know
That
anything.
was for the eviction.
Right.
When this incident happened, she was there.
When the incident happened, she was not living in there, she said. She put her brother in there, but she was always there with the brother. She was the one who called me. She was on the premises.
Is she responsible for the brother?
Yes. Yeah, she takes care of him. She gets the check. She and Kim Gazelle, who owns the glass company.
I think they might have been, what do they call it, the payee, the representative
Yeah.
payee on the check.
Yeah, and that's Aubrey.
Kind of
Listen,
legal.
let me, I'm just gonna.
Relationship.
Let me say something. We're gonna, most of the time, when somebody comes in and wants, and they have a sky-high water bill and they live there, unless they could show that it's their fault, that we don't give them any relief. This issue is about as complicated as the one we was listening to before you come up here with the dirt moving and stuff. I'm gonna suggest that we waive the, you go ahead and pay the bill,
To Nicholson, yes.
and, you pay him half of it, and we'll call it a day.
Pay
If
him
my
half of it?
colleagues will agree with it.
So pay
we
him half
go
of it.
home.
You said you want me to pay him half of it?
Yeah,
What's the half? Thank you, sir.
is that all right? Let's move forward.
Yes, it would be,
Thank you, sir.
I threw my
I just felt
calculator
like
back
I was
there.
done wrong, and I just felt like I would
Look,
need some help. But I'm gonna
this
pay him.
is certainly not as clear cut as most of the things. I can make my personal opinion, I can make
I
an exception
truly
for this.
appreciate you
But
tonight.
most of the time, things are clearly, you use the
So
water.
just the bill, not the wellness.
It's your,
Okay, thank you so much.
That would be $1,253.53 would be.
well, now you gotta get one of my colleagues here to agree with me. I mean,
I knew your husband too well to not say yes.
Yes, he was a good guy. If he was here, I wouldn't be here dealing with it. He would have dealt with it all. But I got.
He probably would have dealt with it a different way.
He would have.
Oh, he would have. He definitely would have. They wouldn't have done the stuff that they're doing.
He was
When
big
he passed
enough.
away, they did everything. But he was a sweet guy to me. I miss him so much. But yeah, he didn't take no wooden nickels, did he?
I make a motion that we allow, Mrs. Freeman to pay 50% of what's.
Okay, so can I give him a check right now?
Yes, you can.
Let me get you, let me get my checkbook. Thank you.
Thank you. Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I just recommend that we move the check writing to the hall because we still have a closed session.
Okay, I
And
will.
it's getting late.
Okay, yes,
Okay with
it is.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Stacy, oh, there's your sign-up list. Good night. I will say, there's not much protection for the landlords in these worlds.
No, it's
I mean,
terrible.
It's terrible. And you,
Be trying to hold on to the property for the sake of their name.
look, we got a couple rentals that I'm not too sure, I wouldn't be better if we burn them down sometimes. So,
No, you don't want to burn them.
Thank you so much.
Unless you get permit.
yeah, probably not go to jail.
Any other public comment, I guess?
We need a motion.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second. I'll make a motion to go into closed session under the Annotated Code of Maryland, General Provisions, Article 3-305B. One, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, board performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personal matter that affects one or more specific individuals. We expect to discuss the terms of a departure of an employee, and that's the reason for the closed session.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.